We're just waiting for them to establish the link with the studio. And we should have ZNBC and Daily Now joining us in another 5 minutes.
I've seen times. Where's the bribe?
I'm giving the point to Charles. One card. Right, good afternoon and welcome to News on the Go with me, Darius. I'm broadcasting to you right here at Parliament Unit. Give you an update for what has just been subscribed. While the deliberations are still ongoing in Parliament, opposition members of Parliament walked out in protest of the ruling by the Speaker of the National Assembly, many motives over petitions. And right now, we just the leader of the opposition is Brandon Nullified, who is going to speak on behalf of the members of Parliament.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, members of the press. Yes, we gather here today because our democracy has suffered yet another setback. The ruling by...
Colleagues, let's maintain the silence.
The ruling by Madam Speaker this afternoon has invoked a sense of shock in all of us. Because not only does it go against the settled principles of law, it has also gone against conventions and traditions of Parliament. So what is important for us to know is that we have three organs of the state: the legislature, judiciary, and the executive. It's a well-known fact that the legislature is there to legislate, make laws. The judiciary is there to interpret the laws, and the executive to implement these laws. What has happened today is that Madam Speaker took it upon herself to interpret the Constitution, to stretch the interpretation of the Constitution in order to expel the members of Parliament whose seats were nullified. This is indeed very, very unfortunate. It has happened at the time that we are debating the budget. It has happened at the time that we had very important business on the floor of the House. Zambians know that the Minister of Finance was delivering a ministerial statement on the IMF deal. And members of Parliament were eager to debate. As you know, this has been very, very topical because most of the citizens are anxious. They are worried about the harsh conditions that may come with this particular bill. And the members of Parliament, representing the people in their constituencies, wanted to address themselves with this particular matter. Whether it was by design, we do not know that this particular ruling that is so shocking had to come at this particular time. Yeah, so for us as members of Parliament, in solidarity with our friends, we decided to walk out. We walked out not out of mischief or misconduct, but because we know that there's something wrong with that ruling. We know that because we've been in Parliament long enough to know that in the past, the previous speakers had ruled differently. And we know that there's supposed to be some consistency in the application of the law, the applications of conventions and traditions of Parliament. We are all aware that there was a recent ruling from the Constitutional Court in the Margaret Manakatwe and versus Court, where the court confirmed that the parliamentary seat will only be vacant after the final determination of the Constitutional Court. But we all know that the 9 seats that were nullified were appealed, and they are in the Constitutional Court. We are therefore surprised that the Speaker took it upon herself to hand down the ruling that she did. We are still wondering what could have motivated that particular decision. So we want to state that we are protesting that particular decision because we know that it's a decision that is not supported by law. And of course, as a party, we will sit down to look at our next move. So we first of all wanted to ensure that the Zambian people know that we decided to walk out because the speaker had ruled that our colleagues who since were nullified can no longer continue sitting in the chamber. So I will now call upon Honorable Chief Whip to just make a comment.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon to dear colleagues from the press and our people out there, those that are following this briefing. Basically, like the leader of opposition has put it, speaking as Chief Whip for the Patriot Front, I first of all don't know how to describe that word, because in the first place, we don't know whether the speaker has declared these seats vacant. And whether she has that mandate remains to be, again, interpreted. Because if indeed, from what we have known, from the settled practice, the only role she could have played was to announce the declaration of the seats vacant after the court had pronounced after the court pronounced themselves on these issues. So we are standing with our colleagues and our people in those constituencies our colleagues represent, because they are the ones that decided on who should be in this parliament. Yes, we respect the decisions of the High Court in the 9 cases which have since been appealed in the Constitutional Court. But our fear is how the democracy that we have chosen for ourselves as a country is being threatened. And so, before I get my honorable colleague, who is the senior learned counsel, to share with you and our people in terms of the legalities of this matter, we want to say to our members that we will stand firm. Yes, we know we are being tested, but I want to give you an assurance that as your representatives, we are going to be firm and we are going to be united. No one amongst us is going to stray away. We will remain united, and like I said, we are going to stand with our colleagues who are supposed to be in Parliament while their matters are being finally determined by the Constitutional Court. And to the members, like I said last time, we all have a responsibility to protect these members of Parliament who are being targets. We can focus on other matters of leadership and everything at a later stage. Let's deal with matters that are obtaining now, so that we don't lose focus. At this point, I will invite Honorable Sanga, Member of Parliament for Rukasha, to share with us the legal implications of the action that has been taken this afternoon. Honorable Sanga.
Thank you, Chief. I think what the point to emphasize is that what happened today is a travesty of the Constitution, because the Speaker took upon herself the powers that she doesn't have and made a determination to reject members of Parliament who seats were nullified but who have appealed the decision to nullify their seats to the Constitutional Court. Like my colleagues have said, what the public needs to note is that from 2016, what we now enjoy in this country is called the constitutional democracy. We are no longer under parliamentary democracy, because when we enacted the Constitutional Amendment Act of 2016, we separated the three sovereign powers amongst the three states organs. The presidency discharges the executive function, parliament discharges the legislative function, and the judiciary discharges the judicial functions. All these three functions are sovereign in their nature. And we had agreed at that time that the responsibility of interpreting what is constitutional and what is not constitutional will rest with the constitutional court, which is why we have provision, under the law, which allows a person whose seat has been nullified by the High Court to file an appeal to the Constitutional Court. And this is what our 9 colleagues have done. Our colleagues whose seats were nullified by the High Court judges. Like the Chief Whip has said, the Patriotic Front respects the decision of the High Court judges to nullify the seats. But our members have got constitutional rights. In fact, these are not even rights. For them, these are responsibilities. Because the people who've got rights are the citizens or the residents who live in the constituencies where these colleagues of ourselves are members of parliament. So they discharge their duty for filing an appeal to the Constitutional Court. And like the leader of the opposition has said, there's a set precedent that was made by the Constitutional Court by Honorable Mr. Justice Enoch Mulembe, may he so rest in peace, who made a finding in the case of Monakato versus Scott. And he made a finding that when your seat is nullified by the High Court and you file an appeal to the Constitutional Court, the mere filing of that appeal should operate as a stay, and you must be allowed to take your seat in the House until final determination of the petition by the Constitutional Court. What we've seen today is that the Speaker has taken a judicial function upon herself and has departed from what has been set as a precedent by the Constitutional Court. So, like my colleagues have said, we are taking a challenge of this. We are going to use the appropriate means of doing it. But we just want to assure the nation that as parliamentarians for the Patriotic Front, we are going to remain firm and disciplined, but we're going to make sure that the Constitution is not abrogated by anybody, not by ourselves, not by the other members of Parliament, and not by the Speaker herself. That's our position.
Thank you so much. We are calling on the Honorable Msonga Mpankata. Just come and take the seat, make a few remarks. Honorable Sampa, please be ready. Honorable Chanda Mutale and Honorable Christopher Mwombe in that order.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is very unfortunate that the Zambian Democrats is taking this trajectory. Zambians voted for the UPND to deliver on their electoral promises. But what is turning out is that the UPND government, having failed to deliver what they promised the people, is now to start stifling the Zambian democracy, and they're starting it in Parliament. So we as PF parliamentarians will not be cowed down into this. We stand by our colleagues, we support them, and my fellow MPs, the reason they are doing is access to weakness. They know some of us are newcomers in this politics as members of Parliament. Some of us maybe solely depend on being a member of Parliament to survive for a living, but just be strong. This will not take UPND anywhere. The Zambian people are watching you. And the day will dawn on you, the new dawn government, when you realize that Zambians cannot be taken for granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition and Chief Whip. I think indeed today is a sad day. We are all geared to come debate the budget, and more so to do with the announced IMF loan. 9 of our colleagues, if they won't be in the House, who's going to represent those 9 constituencies in debating the budget in between, and also to ask pertinent questions over the IMF loan. I don't know whether it's meant to divert attention. The nation was told in the campaign that the UPND government was coming with ideas of running the country without borrowing. The went to town condemning the PF government for borrowing. And yet the funds that were borrowed, the roads can be seen countrywide, the bridges, the nation doesn't look the same. The infrastructure is there to see. But barely 90 days into government, 100 days into government, they have committed the nation. I think within 2 weeks they already borrowed from World Bank, and now the IMF $1.4 billion. So they've gone back on their way. That's what the Zambian people want to hear, and we wanted to debate today. Ask them in parliament, is that the only solution that they have for the Zambian people, to go to the IMF and borrow? The IMF was excited on Friday announcing, congratulating the president for being bold. We want to know, what does that word bold mean to us Zambians? We wanted to ask the finance minister, which country has ever survived the IMF? And does it mean ZESCO tariff will be increased? And by how much? And fuel, by how much? We wanted to know how it will affect the Zambians. And also the subsidies that will be removed. It's well known that if subsidies is removed from the mines, almost $1 billion can be realized in 1 year. This $1.4 million loan from IMF is over 3 years. Are we giving priority to the corporate world? Has Zambia been taken over by the mines? First, the budget itself gave mineral royalty back to the mines. The budget gave very little to Zambians, but gave back money to the mines. About $300 million it was lost through mineral royalty that was given to the mines. Even the subsidy, $1 billion on fuel and on electricity, 90% of that goes to the corporate world, to the mines. So we wanted to ask the finance minister in his statement today, why can't they remove the subsidy from the corporate world, from the mines, and leave the subsidy to the Zambians, leave them to enjoy the tariff of ZESCO there, to enjoy the mini-meal prices there, and the fuel prices there. That's what the people of Zambia sent us here to come and do, and ask those pertinent questions. So it's unfortunate that none of our colleagues won't have that opportunity to ask on behalf of their citizens. I think it's a dark day in the political history of Zambia, unprecedented and most unfortunate. I thank you, Chief.
Thank you so much, Honorable.
Thank you so much. Could we have Honorable Chandamkale?
Yeah, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of parliament. Indeed, like other speakers have said already, today is another day that the Patriotic Front is making history. History in that we are being tested as a party and also as members of parliament. As you might be aware, the speaker has jurisdiction on the standing orders and not the Constitution. What she has done today, she is trying also to become a court on her own. And as PF, we are saying that we won't allow that to continue, and she won't hold us to ransom. She won't change our trajectory. We shall remain an opposition, and a meaningful position. Another facet and a matter of fact that you must learn from ourselves is that we shall follow the law to the letter, and we all know in law that precedent takes comes first. And these are matters that have been dealt before in the past. So to bring them today, and one thing that you must also be aware is the appetite to unseat the numbers in parliament. They want to come up with laws that will infringe on the rights of Zambians. So all these tricks they are playing around with, they don't want anyone to be opposing whatever decisions they are making, whether good or bad. they want to have a free ride. And I don't think Zambians are ready to do that. So UPND, with your speaker, we want to retaliate and tell you that we are not going to bend, but we shall remain upright and continue giving you the checks and balances. And we urge you to follow the law. And let's not be here to please other countries and other citizens at the cost of Zambians. Look, when you go to America and the UK, the same subsidies are being given to old people, the aged people, they get them. Why come here and stop us from giving people subsidies? What is wrong in one eating his own money? We are talking about taxpayers' money, we're not talking about borrowed money. Taxpayers' money. So, President Hakainde Hichilema, please be aware that Zambians are already suffering. They don't want more problems beyond this. I thank you.
Honorable Christopher Kanumbi.
Good afternoon, members of the public. Allow me to begin by stating that much of the issues that have happened today, I think, have been adequately addressed by the previous speakers. But I think there's one issue which requires that the public is made aware of, which obviously is the impact of the high fuel prices that we are going to see and the high tariffs that we are going to see in terms of electricity. It is important that we take you back briefly to what the Patriotic Front did to ensure that the price of fuel is maintained where we are today. There are two things that we did as the Patriotic Front. The first one, we did issue, I think through the Minister of Finance at that time, a statutory instrument that removed VAT on the price of fuel. When you go to the Energy Regulation Board, they will tell you that previously, part of the price for fuel included VAT. So what we did as PF, at a time we were given the privilege to be in government, was to remove VAT, meaning government lost revenue. Now we lost revenue for the benefit of our citizens. And that was one component that managed to ensure that the price of fuel is minimal, meaning we lost money. But because we wanted our people to benefit, the VAT had to be forgone. The second thing that we did as PF, in ensuring that the price of fuel is also at a slightly very lower level, was to reduce the amount of excise duty. Because excise duty used to contribute to the price of fuel. Meaning essentially, for the last 1 or 2 years, steps were taken to ensure that the impact is not on our people, because ultimately, the fuel prices we are going to see, the people that will feel the impact are the ordinary people. So 2 things were done. 2 statutory instruments were issued, one to remove VAT, and secondly, to reduce the amount of excise duty. The minister yesterday announced that there are no subsidies, meaning we'll see the price of fuel going above 20 kwacha. Now, I don't see Zambians coping with those new prices of fuel, and I want to remind our colleagues that are in power today that you don't take people for granted on an issue where they've raised a genuine concern. I think the debate now is about the price of the tariff for fuel. So that's the first issue which I wanted to add to what our senior members of parliament earlier on referred to. Secondly, the issue of the cost-reflective tariff. I know the language may sound very strange, but a cost-reflective tariff is essentially an expensive tariff. The summary of it is that to generate power from the generation plant, transmit it, and then distribute it, there's a high cost involved. But because the previous government realized that the impact will be felt by the people, they were reluctant to agree to some of these conditions, because these conditions have always been there. I think that one of the reasons the PF never agreed to the IMF deal was because the terms that were provided we are going to impact on our people ultimately. So I wanted to raise these two particular issues because there's a window of opportunity for the current government to reconsider what they've announced. There's nothing wrong with going back and saying, we've heard the cries of our people and we're not going to proceed with increasing the two tariffs. So members of the public, our position remains that we could not have agreed to those terms at a time we were in power because we realized the impact on our people. So we hope the new government has taken note of what people are saying, because it's possible to ignore the way they are ignoring what people are saying. Public opinion about the tariffs, from the information we've gathered, does not favor an increment because people know the impact of those two tariffs. I thank you.
Let me call upon Honorable Jean to send around the MP. Should be followed by Honorable Kasandwe, and Honorable Kapianga will close it up.
Thank you so much, members of the press. And I must say, many things have already been discussed by our senior members of the party. I will just go direct to remind the people of Zambia and the UPNG in particular, to say the people of Zambia voted for you because they had hope in your leadership and they had hope that you would deliver. So coming into the house and making few changes, practically taking the law into your hands, or rather into their hands, shall not work. We are still remaining consolidated, and the law is very clear at 74 of the Constitution. The judiciary, the legislature, and the executive, these three organs have to work independently. We are out of parliament today so that we show solidarity to our colleagues, and we shall ensure that we take the necessary steps as far as the law is concerned. We shall follow the right procedure so that we ensure that our colleagues are back to parliament and we support them accordingly.
Thank you so much, Honorable Kasandwe.
Good afternoon, Zambians. Today, the dark cloud has fallen on Zambian democracy. We do realize that all this petition issue was just a ploy by UPND to ensure that Zambia becomes a one-party state. We've had in the past examples when seats were nullified in the past. And those MPs whose seats were nullified, they stayed in parliament until the Constitutional Court ruled otherwise, even before the Constitution was amended in 2016. We have examples when petitions were taken before the court, and those members who are petitioned and whose seats were nullified, they remained in parliament until they went to the airport, which ruled otherwise. I can cite few examples. In the case of Stephen Masumbu and Elliot Kamondo, there was an appeal, but the member of parliament remained in parliament. Another example is Honorable Kandruo, when the seat was nullified, she appealed to the Constitutional Court. I think she remained in parliament until the Constitutional Court ruled otherwise. There are few examples that I can keep on citing. So what we see today is a direct injury on the democracy. Because we've had examples of honorable members whose seats were nullified when they appealed to the higher court, they remained into parliament, as I've already alluded to. So this is strange. What we have seen today happen is very strange and something that they have calculated. You remember that even in the Constitutional Court now, the UPND member who lost the Honorable Shakafusu, he went to Court to petition that Article 97, part of Article 97, be declared illegal. So they structured things in such a manner that things are just falling in place. So as PF MPs, we support our colleagues to ensure that justice is done, And we also want to send a clear warning to UPN that the battle they have started, they will not win it. We have to the task, and I thank you.
Thank you so much. Honorable Kapianga, under 1 minute. Colleagues from the media have to rush back to the thing.
Thank you so much, and good afternoon. Technically, what the speaker has done, she has declared the sixth matter, which is not a mandate. A mandate is restricted to the standing orders of the National Assembly. Suffice to say that this is a ploy by the UPND government to crush the biggest opposition political party, which is PF. And the Zambian people are not going to accept that. We call on the international community, the civil society organizations to rise to the occasion and realize that our democracy under the UPND government is under serious threat. Instead of the UPND government focusing on fulfilling the campaign promises on which they were voted for, and now focusing on crushing our democracy as a nation, it's not health at all. And the sooner the UPND government realizes that Zambia is a democratic country, the better. We call on every Zambian, particularly our members out there, to go flat out and remind the people of the fact that the UPND government has failed to fulfill even a single promise in 100 days. Farmers out there have not been paid. Salary increment for the civil servants has not been actualized. Right now, the Minister of Finance is giving a ministerial statement on the International Monetary Fund bailout package, on which condition is that they are going to remove fuel and electricity subsidies. This is going to trigger high prices of essential commodities very soon. And soon or later, we'll be transporting our goods and services at high cost. Unlike in the previous regime, we call the Zambian people to defend the democracy which they gained in 1991. It is under serious threat under this government, and the Zambian people should rise to the occasion. I thank you so much.
Maybe I hand over to the leader of opposition.
Yes, thank you. I think that we are done with the media. So our friends for the media, I think
if there are any questions, please feel free. We can take 1 or 2 questions.
Take 1 or 2 questions maybe from me. Yes.
Is this protest going to continue even to the future sittings? It's just going to be as you take legal force?
Well, like we pointed out earlier, we are going to stand in solidarity with our friends. After this media interaction, we are consulting further. We'll be able to inform you of our further action.
Any other question? Okay, colleagues from the media, thank you so much for your presence.
Vamos para eles.